Hi everyone, welcome back to Finkel Pottery in Summerside, Prince Edward Island, and this is going to be my last kiln opening before my trip. Yay! So I thought I would just show you some of the pieces that are coming out of the kiln today. I'm outside today. I'm at my kiln, look, in my very sort of rusty, trusty metal kiln shed, which is under my carport. So let's have a look at some of the pieces that came out. We'll start with this little plate, just a little mermaid plate. And this was my studio blue. Recipe is in a few previous videos. And then this was seaweed on the edge. So that turned out really pretty. These are, sometimes I just roll these plates with these uneven sort of natural edges when I have some bits of clay left over. So I think that's what I did in that case, if I'm remembering correctly. Same thing with this one, just a piece of clay I had left. And I had a jellyfish stamp. So I stamped it. And then once it came out of the kiln and was bisqued, I painted it with Temmoku Celadon Deep Sea, and then wiped it back. And then covered this part with sort of like the bottom area with wasabi, probably 3 or 4 coats of Temmoku Celadon. And then I did a couple of coats of the Deep Sea on the rim. I probably could have done a few more. It's a little bit light, but it's still very, very pretty. And then over that, I did 1 coat of olive float, Temmoku olive float. And then I just took a sponge and sponged a little olive float just in over the wasabi. It gives it this kind of nice smoky look. So I think that's kind of pretty for the summer. Put some treats on. Oh, I had some of these in here. These guys are little, cute little trinket dishes. Little gnomes. So these are painted with, let's see. This is an underglaze, the little nose. The white beard is an underglaze. The hat and the bottom part is underglaze. The little tray part is just clear, but first I put the Temmoku Celadon Deep Sea and then wiped it back, then did the Temmoku mixing clear over that. Just 1 coat, because they're not for food or anything like that. And then for the hat and the bottom, I also covered it with Temmoku mixing clear. So when I first started pottery, I was really confused about underglazes, because why did they run sometimes when you put them under clear? Why do some work really well? It took me a while to wrap my head around the fact that some underglazes are fluxed, which means they're going to be shiny when you fire them. For example, this little nose and this white are both fluxed underglazes, but the blue and the yellow were not fluxed underglazes. So I could have left it and it would have been a matte finish, or I could put the Temmoku mixing clear over it, which I did. And I only put 1 coat, so it's not super, super shiny, but it just took some of that matte away. Then the little polka dots in the blue, though, that is, excuse me for a minute. That is Mako Designer Liner polka dots over the mixing clear. So if you put the designer liner over glazes, typically, unless the glaze is super, super runny, it's going to pretty well stay in place for you. So, for example, for my underglazes, these are Dunkins. There used to be a lot of Dunkin around, especially in Canada. So the Dunkin concepts on the lid, I put shiny. The Dunkin cover coat, I just put a CC for cover coat. Then I know I'm using a shiny underglaze or I'm using a cover coat underglaze. So that's how I keep myself organized. Because if I use the shiny, I'm going to do a lot of painting, sort of like little things, and then I cover it with a clear glaze, it's often going to run or blur, where this will be more stable. So it takes a while to kind of get your head around that, but that's a really important thing to know about your underglaze that you're using. Is it a matte one, which means it's probably got more clay in it, or is it a shiny underglaze, which has a lot of flux in it, or some flux in it, not a lot. And I have a olive oil pourer. So this would be winterwood, Norse blue. Winterwood would have gone over the Norse blue a little bit, and then a band of flux in the middle, the handle. And someone asked me if I could do a video on how I measure my pour spouts or my soap spouts, but the reality is that I am not that technical when I do it. What I do is I keep one of my pour spouts around that I'm going to put in it when I'm throwing. I just keep one that gets mucky, and I just leave that as my sort of my basic one to test. And I just sort of, as I'm throwing, I make sure I can fit it in and it's loose. And so far I've been lucky, but the ones I use are tapered, so there's some forgiveness, right? So sometimes it might be a little higher up, sometimes it might be a little lower down, but really that is all I do. I'd like to say I was more scientific, and I'm sure there's someone out there with an amazing video on how to be more scientific, but it won't be me. So here's another soap dispenser. Same idea. So this one, I actually threw it a little bigger than normally I have a little more cork showing, but today it still fits great, but it's lower down, not as much cork showing. So it's a bit of an organic thing, and I guess I kind of approach it like if I got to a point where something didn't fit, it still would be a lovely vase. So that's kind of how I do it. I know that's not super scientific, but works for me. Here is a vase, and this would be with the Norse blue, the winterwood overlapping, and then a band of flux. So that would be really pretty with some summer flowers in it. Pink planter. It's got the hole, and I have a tray that I already fired in a previous firing for that. Oh, this is pretty. Okay, so this one is my studio blue. So I just painted it on, even though it's a dipping glaze, to the bottom, and then dipped it in the bucket like this and left a little bit on the rim. And then the rim in the inside is coyote gunmetal green, which I think I've mentioned before. Look at this, look at the crystallization of that. It is one of my favorite glazes, and that turned out beautifully. That nice little pasta bowl. So I'm happy with that. Another little gnome, same idea. This guy's got a little butterfly. The other one had a little yellow bird on the hat. So these would be cute for rings or coins or things like that. Okay, I'm gonna pause you and take out the shelf. Okay, back to the next shelf. Here is another one of those pasta bowls with the studio blue and the gunmetal green. So those turned out really nice. Happy with those. This little dish, I did a few trinket dishes this low just because they're great kiln fillers. It's just got a little starfish and a little scallop shell and just a little texture on the edges. But I did this in Emerald Falls. So I have some glazes on my shelf, like I'm sure some of you do too, that have been sitting there for a long time that I don't use. And I said, oh my God, I'm just gonna look and see what I can start putting into the rotation. So Emerald Falls made it in this time because I've had that bottle of glaze for, good God, I do not know how long. This one, oh, wowza, this is pretty. So this one I dipped in Laguna Power Turquoise. Then I dipped in my Temmoku Gold, which is just made in the studio. And then on this rim, I just put a band of Coyote Gunmetal Green because I know it'll run a beautiful blue on Laguna because I use that a lot. And then I just put a band of light flux in the middle. And I think that is a very, very pretty bowl. Wowza, happy with that. Nice, 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 nice. Another little gnome. I think I made 4 or 5 of them. This little guy's got a ladybug on him. And all under glazes except for the tray itself, which is the Temmoku Mixing Clear, as I mentioned before. These are 2 little dishes that I made for my smallest furry clients yet. My niece has just adopted 2 guinea pigs. So she messaged me and she said she wanted a couple of pottery bowls. How sweet is that? A couple of pottery bowls for them for their water in their dish. So that's what these are. Oh, I guess I should tell you what's on them. This one is my Studio Blue recipe, as I mentioned before, a couple of videos back, with blue hydrangea. Just one coat of blue hydrangea over that to get those nice speckles. And then this one would be eggplant, Mako eggplant with blue hydrangea with the gold speckles and the blooms. Blue hydrangea is cool over a lot of things. Mostly because that gold speckling stays really true, which is nice. Just a little flower trinket dish. This is in Coyote Fairy Rose, and then the little flower is in the Temmoku Satin Mats. So this is the white and the yellow. So that's pretty cute. Cute. And this one just says Live, Love, Ride, and it's just got bicycles all the way around. So that's just the Temmoku Deep Sea Celadon. I hope I'm saying it right. I hope it's deep sea. And then you wipe it back and then a Temmoku Mixing Clear over that. Okay, time to take off the next shelf. Okay, on to the next shelf. Ooh, that's so pretty. That turned out quite nicely. So this is, remember I said I'm trying to use up Emerald Falls, or at least use it. So the outside is Emerald Falls, probably 3 coats. It's a little bit opaque in places, or sorry, translucent in places, but I like it. It just looks like it's falling over it where it's thicker. And then inside, if you can see that, that turned out so pretty. Inside I did a band of Emerald Falls, including on the handle. Then below that I did a band of my Temmoku Gold, and I just sponged it in like a band around it. Probably went around 2 or 3 times so I could get it thick enough, because it is a dipping glaze. And then in the bottom, probably 3 coats of the Temmoku Deep Sea Celadon. Whew! Wow! And I got to tell you, this bowl, you wouldn't want to look at it too close. I don't know if any of you ever have throwing days like this, but I went down, I was trying to get some things made under a deadline, and I didn't feel like doing it, so I was not in the right headspace. So I threw this bowl, and I think first I had to chop the rim off. Then I cut my finger really bad, dipping my hand in the bucket, and my metal rib was in there, and so that was no fun. So then I'm bleeding all over the bowl. So I just left it. I said, okay, I got to stop for a bit. But I didn't give up on the bowl. So I just left it covered. And once it set up a little bit, I thought, okay, no, I'm going to try to save this poor bowl. I'm glad I did. So I just stamped the rim with my little spiral stamp. Once it had set up a bit, of course. I put on handles using a video for inspiration that Vaughn Smith from Westcote Bell Pottery did. So I did the handles, and then I just, you just put your thumbs here, use a paintbrush also from Vaughn, and just bend this lip down so that you've got more of a space for your handles. But I think that turned out really pretty. And the Temmoku is more like almost a brown here, probably just because there's a lot of flux happening. Sometimes Temmoku, if there's a lot of flux happening, will become more brown, but I can see little specks of gold in it, which is really pretty. That's a nice bowl. Someone will enjoy that. And if they don't, I will, for sure. And here is another one of those bowls that I showed you already. So I just did 2. In the Laguna Power Turquoise, Gunmetal Green, Temmoku gold and flux. So I think that's a pretty handsome bowl. Someone's going to enjoy that, I think. What else we got here? Ooh. Oh, got a little Mr. Fox, fabulous Mr. Fox. So that's using, this is Coyote Mediterranean Sea, and this is the Amico satin mats in orange, white, and yellow, and a little bit of the black. So he's just a little funky guy. If you're using the satin mats, it's not like using an underglaze where you're going to have some variations in color and you can create some fur. It's more like a little more of a cartoon effect, I guess would be the best way to say that. This one, spoon rest. And this one, I think I've mentioned this before. I'm always looking for ways to save time. So I do have a bucket of dipping alabaster, which is the base for winter wood. So I give things a quick dip in alabaster, then I just do one coat of the paint on winter wood. And in this case, I put one coat of Norse blue over that. It almost looks a bit like cenote, which I think is very similar to the cenote recipe, although I could be wrong. Someone can correct me if that's the case. What else we got in here? Oh, more gnomes. Gnomes are taking over the world. This little guy. I've already explained how I do that. I think they'll be popular. They're cute. I did a bunch of, I'm looking for some kiln fillers. I'm also looking for, I love little creatures. And my granddaughter and I go on adventure walks in the woods or, you know, on a trail or whatever. And the other day we found a bunch of slugs crossing the path as well, which we had to stop and put in the grass. Took a while. And then we also saw, I know the term is not called a land snail, and someone can chime in and tell me what it is, but it looks like a snail. So we saw that as well. So they kind of inspired these little guys. I did a bunch of them just in different colors. So of course my granddaughter will get one. I'll let her pick whatever color she likes. But I think they'd be really cute in plants and that kind of thing. This one is Temmoku gold. This one, oh, that's interesting. I had a bucket, once again, kind of going back to trying to come up with some things that I haven't been using. This is a bright, it's called Bright Blue on my bucket. I'm not quite sure where I got the recipe and I haven't been using it, but I thought I'm gonna dip my little snail guy in it, and look, it turned out cute. So it really pools nicely and is quite translucent where there is not texture. So I'm glad I did that because it'll give me some ideas of how I can use that glaze. Maybe with some carved mugs or something. Would look really nice. Okay. This one is Pike's Purple. Little Pike's Purple guy. This one is, oh, this one's Emerald Falls. Emerald Falls. So he's cute too. So I just did them in all different colors. I thought, well, that'll be fun. Fun for people. Fun for my granddaughter. This one is in the Deep Sea Celadon. I got little eyes on the top. See if I can pull that back. There we go. And I did two of them in Coyote Fairy Rose. They turned out really cute. Okay, there's that. Oh, they turned out sweet. So this is the lid for a butter dish. The butter dish is further down in the kiln. So I've got it on a stilt. And once again, I learned this from Vaughn Smith. So I'll set it aside and we're gonna say a prayer that the bottom fits the top. If all goes well. Then I've got little pour bowls with the finger dimples and the spout. These are really popular. And then a matching little bowl that you just put like a little wooden spoon in. but those turned out good. Okay, pause you to take out a shelf. Okay, last shelf. I haven't looked. I'm a little bit nervous. I have a bunch of custom orders in here, which I don't do very often. Oh, those turned out good. Whew, I was a little nervous. Studio blue on the top, winter wood on the bottom with just a tiny line of flux. Because it was so close to the bottom, I really didn't want to do much other than that with white inside. So those turned out nice. And this would be studio blue on the top, Temmoku frosted lemon on the bottom with a little bit of flux where they meet. Once again, I did not go crazy with the flux because I was worried about it falling too far down, but those turned out nice. Hopefully the rest all look like that. I have a bunch of them. Several. Okay. Oh, that one's nice. So I won't spend hours, but I pretty well did the same treatment on all of them as per their request. I know a lot of you do custom work. I don't. Matter of fact, this is a client from way back when I did, and they've been awesome to deal with, so I continue to do it whenever they need it, which is pretty sporadic. But I don't typically take orders. I just make what I like, and if it sells, great, and if it doesn't, gifts, right? So I've been pretty lucky. So that studio blue is nice and vibrant on the white. On dark clay, it becomes much darker. Almost like a blue-black or a deep navy, depending on the clay. So it's a great stable glaze for me. The only thing you have to watch with it is I made some pieces one day and I was not careful enough about how I mixed it up. Or maybe I mixed a bunch, or dipped a bunch of pieces and forgot to remix. So it became almost like a blue jean color. It was still pretty, but if you want that nice vivid blue, you really got to make sure you've got your bucket of glaze well mixed. But this gives me a lot more coverage, and it's still somewhat like a Celadon than that deep sea. Like the deep sea, I love it. It's beautiful, but it's like 4 coats. It takes a long time. A dip takes 3 seconds. So sometimes a dipping glaze can be your friend, but I do love paint on glazes with bowls and things, especially big bowls, because dipping is gnarly. Pouring works better sometimes. But there, that's the last of those. I won't bore you with those anymore, but they turned out quite nice. So I actually used a white clay on this. Tucker's mid smooth stone. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, I fired to about cone 5.5. I used Camille Hoffman's slow cool schedule. If you Google that, it will pop up absolutely. And I think I also put it on one of my previous videos in the notes. And then I just used, it's just a mid-brown clay, and I cannot remember the exact name of it, but it's a stoneware clay from Tucker's. It's not heavily grogged. So I used it for this part. So, cause I wanted that more of that beigey look for the applique on the front. So those turned out good. Happy with those. Oh, the butter dish. The butter dish. So just my studio white inside, Temmoku frosted lemon on the outside with a little dip of white, and then flux. And let's just see, fingers crossed, everybody pray. Yay. Now, if you look at that lid might be a tiny bit too small for it. I mean, it's good, it's close. I would sell it still, but it could have been a little tighter maybe. It's kind of tricky sometimes with the lids. I try to leave a little extra play because I'm glazing I'm glazing the lid and the rim. So there's a little thickness added there, right? So sometimes, I guess in this case, I might have left it with just a little too much play, but it's still pretty. And I think it's still fine. We always learn in pottery. A couple more little snail kiln fillers, and these are Coyote Deep Sea. And I just made these with little coils. Didn't take any amount of time. It's such a great thing to use when you have clay that, you know, you've got scraps. It's still usable, but you don't want to wedge it a million times to throw something bigger with it. Then they're great for things like that. Last two snails. So, frosted lemon and Pike's purple. So those are cute. Turned out great. Happy with those. Happy, happy. And this is the Norse Blue, Winter Wood, and Flux combo that I already showed you, and some other pieces with the white inside, with that new inverted shape I'm using more now. They're really stable. I like that. All right. You can see I used a lot of that. It's very summery, and I think that summer is here. I had a few pieces at the last sale I did, and they sold really, really fast. People really loved them. So I thought, well, I better make a few more. And last but not least, I've got 3 little dip bowls that I typically sell with the wooden spoons. And so these are, oh, didn't even say what I did. Studio Blue, dipped. Then blue hydrangea inside, a band of it outside, and then flux on the rim, both inside and outside. And you get this really pretty drippage. Now this one I got some crawling. I don't know if you can see that. And it's been happening to me when I do this. I'm a little impatient when I put things in the kiln, when I do this particular glaze, I should say. And and often it's on the inside lip of bowls, and I think it's because it's not quite dry yet. So I can refire that, no problem, and I'll just cover it with some more glaze and it'll be fine. But I do think sometimes my impatience gets the best of me. So when I can, I do try to let things dry completely. Now this one worked out fine. So this is Winterwood inside and out. So a dip in alabaster, then a coat of winterwood. You can see I was getting near the bottom of my winterwood jar. You see how it got really kind of speckly? And I don't love it that speckly. So I just, I actually had a jar of alabaster from before I got the dipping glaze. So I just poured some alabaster into it and thinned it out. So I got this instead on the outside, which I much prefer. And then I did a band of Norse Blue. And then I did a band of light flux. And that turned out pretty, I think. So that is it for this kiln unload. I'm going to be gone for a few weeks. Going to get inspired, I'm sure, by lots of things that I will see when I'm away. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you at the next video. Take care, everyone.